A fascinating player. I mean, that's exactly what the tennis world needed. Very charismatic, a joy to watch. You know, the real artist.
Finally happening after having to wait over 5 months for these two men to play again in a tournament. Carlos Alcaraz going up against
Boris Becker just exposed the terrifying truth about Carlos Alcaraz, and Jannik is the only man alive who can save him from himself. Welcome back to Court Vision Plus, the only place on the internet where we don't just watch tennis. We dissect it, we dramatize it, and we deliver it to you with the kind of raw, unfiltered energy that the sport itself deserves. If you are new here, buckle up, because today we are going places that the mainstream tennis media is too polite to go. We are cracking open a statement made by one of the most respected and controversial minds in the history of this sport.
A fascinating player. I mean, that's exactly what the tennis world needed. Very charismatic, a joy to watch. You know, the real artist on the...
And what is buried inside that statement is not just a compliment. It is a warning, a flashing red siren, a psychological profile of a 22-year-old genius that is equal parts thrilling and terrifying. Because Boris Becker, six-time Grand Slam champion and former world #1, just stepped in front of the international press at one of the most glamorous sporting events on the planet, and he said something about Carlos Alcaraz that nobody in tennis is talking about loudly enough.
A fascinating player. I mean, that's exactly what the tennis world needed. Very charismatic, a joy to watch. You know, the real artist.
So let's set the stage properly, because the context here is everything. The atmosphere inside the arena was electric, practically suffocating with the kind of white-knuckle tension that you can only find in the deepest, most grueling stages of a major tennis tournament. The quarterfinal match had just reached its brutal, exhausting conclusion. For hours upon hours, the crowd had been riding a chaotic, emotional roller coaster, screaming at every break point, gasping at every extended baseline rally, and absolutely marveling at the kind of athletic freakishness that Carlos Alcaraz brings to the court every single time he laces up his shoes and steps over that baseline. The final ball had been struck. The match was officially over, and the protocol for a moment like this is practically etched in granite. The winner roars, pumps his fist toward the sky, jogs to the net for a handshake, maybe signs the camera lens for the broadcast team, waves to his adoring fans in the stands, and soaks in every last drop of that sweet, hard-earned victory. But fate, as we all know, has a very funny and occasionally terrifying way of completely tearing up the script. Right at the very edge of the court, almost invisible amidst the roaring applause and the chaotic swirl of post-match celebration, a young ball girl was quietly fighting a battle of her own. And let's be brutally honest for a moment here, because these kids deserve it. Ball kids are the absolute unsung heroes of professional tennis. They stand like statues in blistering, punishing heat for hours on end, sprinting back and forth at a moment's notice, tossing towels with precision, and essentially ensuring that the entire multi-million-dollar spectacle runs like a perfectly oiled machine, while remaining completely invisible to the broadcast cameras. They are trained to be ghosts. They are expected to blend into the background no matter what their body is telling them. But the human body has its limits, and on this particular day, on this particular court, those limits were catastrophically breached. Out of absolutely nowhere, the young girl wobbled. Her knees buckled underneath her, and she collapsed in a dead faint right there at the perimeter of the clay, crumpling to the ground like a rag doll while the stadium chaos swirled all around her. Now here is where the story goes from dramatic to genuinely extraordinary. In the hyper-focused, rigidly protocol-driven bubble of professional tennis, there is a very clear chain of command for emergencies. You wait for the chair umpire to assess the situation. You wait for the medical staff to be called down from their designated positions. You hold your position. You do not intervene. That is the unwritten rule, and it is followed almost universally because the machinery of professional sport is designed that way. But Carlos Alcaraz looked at that unwritten rule, calculated it against what his eyes were telling him in real time, and then threw it clean out of the stadium. Without hesitating for even a fraction of a second, the Spanish phenom snapped his head toward the commotion. His eyes went wide with genuine, unfiltered alarm. He didn't glance up at the umpire's chair for clearance. He didn't wait for tournament officials in their neatly pressed blazers to make their way down from the sidelines. He dropped absolutely everything and sprinted toward the edge of the court with the same explosive urgency he uses to chase down impossible passing shots, running directly, immediately, instinctively to her aid. In that single, stunning moment, he was not the world's most exciting tennis player. He was not a career Grand Slam champion with the weight of an entire nation's expectations on his shoulders. He was not a global superstar with sponsorship deals and press obligations and brand management to worry about. He was just a deeply concerned young man acting on pure, unfiltered gut instinct, because a vulnerable person needed help and he was the closest one there. The racket he had been wielding like a weapon for the past several hours? Left on the court. The scoreline? Irrelevant. The cameras broadcasting his every micro-expression to millions of households around the world? Completely ignored. He knelt beside the young girl, frantically waved down the medical team with a barely contained urgency that sent visible shivers through the crowd, and used his own match towel to fan her face while the slow-moving apparatus of the official medical response finally, mercifully, kicked into gear. The reaction inside the stadium was something ripped straight out of a cinematic masterpiece. That roaring wall of post-match noise that had been shaking the stands just moments before? Gone. Instantly replaced by a breathless, wide-eyed, collective silence that pressed down on the entire arena like a physical weight. The free-flowing, net-rushing, emotionally volcanic Becker against the cold, baseline grinding, psychologically impenetrable Lendl, and said that Sinner serves the same function in Alcaraz's career that Lendl served in his. Not just a rival, a catalyst, a necessary force of resistance that makes the other one dig deeper, evolve faster, and ultimately become greater than they would have been in isolation. Sinner is the antidote to Alcaraz's boredom. Every time the Italian steps across the net from him, Alcaraz's brain lights up like a pinball machine because Sinner doesn't give him anything to improvise around cheaply. Sinner makes him earn every single point. The pace is relentless, the positioning is suffocating, the mental game is airtight, and the level of ball striking is so consistently elite that Alcaraz cannot afford a single lapse in concentration. Sinner demands the best version of Carlos Alcaraz every single time, without exception, and in doing so, he is quite literally making Alcaraz better. And right now, in real time, in the spring of 2026, this rivalry is operating at a level of intensity that has the entire tennis world on the edge of its seat. Because what is happening at the Monte Carlo Masters this week is not just a clay court tournament. It is a proxy war for the #1 ranking, a heavyweight title fight being conducted in the impossibly beautiful setting of the French Riviera, with stakes so high they would make anyone's hands shake. Alcaraz currently holds the top spot, but Sinner is right there, right behind him, breathing on his neck, counting every point, calculating every permutation. The throne is not secure. The throne has never been less secure. And just when you thought you had seen everything this rivalry had to offer, Monte Carlo served up a subplot so dramatic that a screenwriter would have been embarrassed to pitch it. Jannik Sinner, who had been on one of the most statistically absurd winning streaks in recent tennis history, winning 37 consecutive sets at ATP Masters 1000 level going back to last year, going a mind-bending 186 days without dropping a single set at that tier of competition, showed, suddenly and shockingly, that he is human after all. Against Tomas Macaque, under the blazing Riviera sun, Sinner looked like a different player. Fatigued, labored, a step slow. He dropped the set. His streak was over. And for a brief, thrilling moment, it seemed like the ice might be cracking. But this is Jannik Sinner we are talking about. And Jannik Sinner does not do extended vulnerability. He dug in, found the reserves, and ground out a 3-set survival that told you everything you need to know about his mentality. He wasn't playing well. He knew he wasn't playing well. He won anyway. That is champion DNA, and it is exactly the kind of opponent that forces Alcaraz to reach for something extraordinary. Meanwhile, Alcaraz has been navigating his own minefield on the Monte Carlo clay. A grinding, physically demanding battle against Tomas Martin Echeverry pushed him to his limits and reminded everyone watching that the road to the quarterfinals was never going to be a leisurely stroll. But he got through. He is still standing. And as he advances deeper into the draw, he is inching toward a milestone that would have seemed absurd to predict even 2 years ago. If Alcaraz continues this run in Monaco, he is set to overtake Andy Murray in the all-time career prize money rankings, an achievement so staggering for a 22-year-old that it barely computes. Murray spent 17 years at the absolute pinnacle of this sport, winning Grand Slams, winning Olympic gold, reaching #1 in the world. And Alcaraz, before he has even turned 23, is about to pass him on the earnings list. The financial trajectory of this young man is not just impressive, it is historically unprecedented. But here is what matters more than the money, more than the rankings, more than any individual tournament result. What Becker identified at the Laureus Awards is a truth about this era that the numbers alone cannot capture. The Alcaraz-Sinner dynamic is not just a rivalry. It is a generational engine. It is the mechanism by which two extraordinary talents are being forced to become greater than they would otherwise be, to innovate, to suffer, to adapt, to evolve. Every time Sinner wins, Alcaraz has to respond. Every time Alcaraz produces a masterpiece on a big stage, Sinner has to dig deeper. They are locked in a cycle of mutual elevation that is genuinely producing some of the most spectacular tennis ever played, and the sport is richer and more exciting for every second of it. Boris Becker lived this. He knows what it creates. And he is watching Alcaraz and Sinner with the knowing satisfaction of a man who understands exactly where this road leads, to history. The boredom warning is real, but so is the solution. As long as Jannik Sinner keeps winning, keeps hunting, keeps pushing the boundaries of what machine-like consistency can achieve, Carlos Alcaraz will never be bored enough to truly coast. The fire stays hot because the ice keeps pressing. The artist stays sharp because the engineer keeps raising the standard. And the rest of the tour, the other 90-something players on the ATP circuit who are watching all of this unfold, are essentially spectators in a rivalry that has already moved beyond them. They are competing for the scraps of a sport currently being redefined by two young men who seem to have been put on this earth specifically to make each other better. So we want to know what you think, because this is Court Vision Plus, and your voice is part of this conversation. Do you believe Boris Becker is right? Is Alcaraz genuinely at risk of drifting when the opposition doesn't match his level? Is Sinner the only player on tour who truly activates the best of Carlitos? Or is there someone else lurking in the shadows who could push him just as hard? And who do you have winning Monte Carlo this week? The fire or the ice? Drop everything you've got in the comments section below, because we read every single one and the debates in this community are always absolutely elite. If this video gave you something to think about, something to argue about, or just gave you 30 minutes of quality tennis content you weren't expecting today, please do us a favor and hammer that like button. It genuinely makes an enormous difference to the channel, and it tells the algorithm that Court Vision Plus is exactly the kind of place tennis fans need to be. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure the notification bell is on, because we are covering Monte Carlo all the way through finals weekend, and you do not want to miss a single second of what is shaping up to be one of the most dramatic clay court seasons in recent memory. Stay locked in, stay passionate, and we will see you right back here on Court Vision Plus.
A fascinating player. I mean, that's exactly what the tennis world needed. Very charismatic, a joy to watch, you know, the real artist.
Finally happening after having to wait over 5 months for these two men to play again in a tournament. Carlos Alcaraz going up against